Welcome to another deep dive. Today, we're going to explore those, quality documents, those files and forms, the ones that are so important to businesses but don't always get the attention they deserve. We're going to unlock their hidden superpowers, I guess you could say, discover how they can be more than just paperwork.
Yeah.
Our deep dive today is based on Rita Lurgui's article, Quality Documents, From Compliance to Legal Defense. So, get ready for a bit of a shift in perspective.
Absolutely. We tend to think of these documents as just something we have to do, but they can really be a secret weapon, especially in a world where lawsuits are, around every corner.
Yeah, that's true. So, the article talks about this idea of written proof and documents serving as silent witnesses. Can you help me understand that? It seems like he's saying something more than just good documentation is important, right?
Right. Think about it this way. Let's say there's a liability claim against your company.
Yeah.
Okay. And you have this logbook, right?
Oh.
A really detailed one that's been updated, like it's supposed to be, showing that you followed all the safety protocols, right? That logbook could be the difference between the claim being dismissed quickly and a really long and expensive lawsuit.
Oh.
See? It's like proof that your company really cares about safety. It's like it speaks for you even when you're not in the room.
Okay, yeah. It's not just about checking boxes to be compliant. It's about building a defense.
Exactly. And that defense can be super important in a lot of situations.
Yeah.
Contract disputes, quality claims, regulatory inspections, even internal investigations.
Let's break those scenarios down a bit. Lurgui has some interesting analogies for how those documents come into play. For example, he compares a strong contract, one that's backed by good quality documents, to a sword forged in the fires of compliance.
Yeah, I like that one. That analogy really gets the point across. It shows how those documents, when they're really well prepared, can be really strong tools in legal battles.
Right.
They're the ones that clearly show what your company's position is with, strength.
So it's like having that evidence, the documented evidence, it gives you this edge, a sense of confidence.
Exactly. And then there's that analogy about inspections being like a spotlight.
Right.
So instead of feeling, like you're in the hot seat, scrambling for answers, you're ready, composed. You welcome that scrutiny, because your documents are flawless.
I see. So it's about showing off how much you're committed to quality, that your processes are solid. You're not just saying you do things right. You have the proof.
Exactly. Every little thing adds to that picture of just doing things right. Every note, every signature, every step that's recorded.
Makes sense.
And then when there are investigations, whether it's internal or, someone from outside, those documents are like a compass, guiding investigators to the truth. They make it clear. No ambiguity, no doubt.
That makes a lot of sense. But, creating all these documents can be overwhelming. Lurgui even talks about adding some humor to them to make them, more engaging. I'm not so sure about that. Is he suggesting we turn these serious documents into a comedy routine?
No. He's not saying you should turn your quality manual into a stand-up act or anything like that. I think he's just talking about making them, less scary, more accessible.
Oh.
Like, think about those colleagues who can lighten the mood in a tense meeting. They're being funny, but doesn't mean they're not taking things seriously.
Right.
It's the same idea.
Okay, so it's about finding that balance between being professional and making the content, relatable, even enjoyable to read.
Right. Because remember, these documents are meant to be used and understood by people. If they're more engaging, people are more likely to get something out of them and use the information the right way.
I can see how that could really change the whole culture of quality. People would see these documents as helpful resources instead of just red tape. Speaking of strategy, Lurgui uses the analogy of a chess game when he talks about document preparation. How does that work?
Well, it's like thinking ahead, like a grandmaster planning their moves in a chess match. It's all about proactive risk assessment. You're not just documenting what you're doing, but you're also thinking about those what-if situations. Like potential problems, litigation, audits, changes in regulations, and making sure your documents cover those possibilities before they even happen.
So it's about being prepared for those what-if scenarios, strategically planning your documents so you can handle whatever comes up. It sounds like this needs a close collaboration between quality experts and legal people.
Absolutely. They need to work together, analyze the potential risks and make a really comprehensive documentation strategy that will protect the company. It's like they're building a fortress of information, one that can withstand any future attacks.
That's a good way to put it. And it doesn't sound like it's a one-time thing. Lurgui really emphasizes keeping those documents alive and up to date.
Exactly. He uses this phrase active waiting. It's like even when those documents are filed away, they're not really just sitting there. They're constantly being refined, updated, reviewed to make sure they reflect the latest information, regulations, best practices. It's all connected.
So they're always in training, ready to be called into action.
Yeah, exactly.
This really highlights how dynamic those quality documents are.
Yes, and that's where the expertise of, quality professionals is really important. They're the ones who make sure that those documents stay powerful tools for the company.
I'm definitely seeing these documents in a new light now. They're not just about compliance, they're about strategic planning, risk management, and building a solid base for the company's success. Let's dive a little deeper into this idea of continuous updates, and how they make sure those documents stay effective for the company. Let's pick it up in part 2 of our deep dive. So we were just talking about how these quality documents are constantly evolving. That whole active waiting thing Laura Gui talks about, it really got me thinking. Can you explain that a bit more?
Yeah, it's a really interesting concept, isn't it? It's like it challenges that idea that once you file those documents away, you're done with them. But really, the work's just starting. It's like, imagine you're taking care of a garden. You plant the seeds, you help them grow, but the real work is in the constant care. Watering, weeding, pruning. You got to make sure those plants thrive, reach their full potential.
So you're not just making these documents and then forgetting about them. You're watching things, making sure they stay relevant, still useful tools for the company. What does that actually look like, that active monitoring?
Well, it means keeping up with any changes in the industry. New regulations, best practices, even changes in the legal world. Quality people need to be aware of all that, see how it might affect their documents.
Sounds like a lot to keep up with. Any tools or strategies to help with that active monitoring?
Oh, for sure. There's software out there that can help. It'll flag any updates or changes in regulations that are relevant to your industry. And it's about creating that awareness within the company. Yeah. Encourage people to be on the lookout for any new information or potential problems.
Right.
It's a team effort, really.
Right. Makes sense. It's about having that proactive mindset, making it part of the whole company culture. So let's say a company has done a great job with their documents. They've thought about risks. They're watching everything. They're ready for anything. Then a quality claim comes up. What happens?
That's when those documents really show their value. They're like your protection. They show that you took every precaution, followed procedures carefully, made quality a priority every step of the way. They tell your story clearly and convincingly.
So it's not just about defending yourself against that claim. It's about showing that you've been doing things right all along.
Exactly. It's a strong message to your customers, stakeholders, even the legal system. You're a company that takes quality seriously, and you've got the proof.
Laura Gui has a really vivid way of describing this. He says it's like those documents are sleeping peacefully in the shadows of a filing cabinet until the day they have to save the day in the face of a surprise inspection or a tough legal battle.
Yeah, I like that.
It's a great image, right?
Yeah. It reminds you that these documents, even though we think of them as just records, they can jump into action when you need them. They become your allies protecting the company.
We've talked a lot about the serious side of these documents, but earlier you mentioned Laura Gui's idea about adding humor to them. Could you talk about that more? I'm still not sure about trying to be funny with stuff this important.
I get it. It can feel a little risky. It's about, finding that balance. But think about those people who can make a joke in a tense meeting, right? They lighten things up without making it seem like they don't care.
Yeah.
It's a skill.
So it's not about making fun of the content itself. It's about making the information easier to get through and more interesting.
Exactly. A little humor here and there can make those dense regulations and procedures seem less intimidating, more relatable. It can even help people remember the information better.
When you put it that way, it makes a lot of sense. It's about getting rid of those barriers, making quality management something that people can connect with on a human level,
That's it. And that can lead to a deeper understanding and a real commitment to those quality principles, throughout the company.
I think Laura Gui might be onto something with this. This whole conversation has changed the way I think about quality documents. They're not just about compliance or defense. It's about communication, engagement, even human connection.
That's a good point. Laura Gui emphasizes that these documents are really for people to use, right?
Right.
So if we make them more engaging, more relatable, more human, then they're going to be more effective, have a bigger impact.
Let's talk more about that idea of humanizing those documents and how it can help build a strong, lasting culture of quality. So we've been talking about how quality documents can be more than just boring paperwork. Lugris seems to be saying they're really valuable assets. What do you think about that?
He makes a good case, doesn't he? It's like changing how you think about them, not just a chore, but tools that can actually protect and help your company.
He mentions in the article that some leaders, the ones who are really forward-thinking, they're starting to see it that way.
Yeah.
They see creating and managing those documents as an investment, not just another cost of doing business.
Exactly. And it's an investment that can pay off big time.
Yeah.
Especially when you think about what could happen if you don't have those documents.
Right.
Think about the damage to your finances, your reputation, if you're not ready for an audit or you can't defend yourself in a legal battle.
It's like insurance for your company. You don't need it every day, but when you do, you're sure glad you have it.
Perfect analogy.
Yeah.
And Lugris says this investment mindset, it shouldn't just be about making the documents. It's about keeping them updated, relevant, easy to use, all of that.
We talked about that active waiting idea, but he also says it's important to make them engaging, user-friendly.
Yeah. He really thinks that communicating clearly, even using a little humor, can make a big difference in how people see and use those documents. Make them more approachable, relatable. Then people are more likely to actually read them, understand them, and do things the right way.
That reminds me of what you said earlier about building a culture of quality. It's not enough to just have the documents. You need everyone on board understanding and embracing quality principles.
Absolutely. That's where this whole idea of humanizing those documents comes in. It's about making them less intimidating, less bureaucratic, more like they were made by and for real people.
I see what you mean. If people feel like they're part of it, connected to those documents, they'll take more pride in taking care of them and using them right.
Exactly. It's about changing those documents from something you have to do to something you want to do. And that can change the whole organization, make everyone more proactive about quality management.
So what's the one thing you want our listeners to remember from today? What's the key message from Lugris?
I think it's this. Quality documents aren't just about following the rules. They're about strategy, protection, empowerment. They're about setting your company up for success, making sure it thrives in the long run. And when we take a more proactive, creative, human approach to these documents, we unlock their true potential. They become powerful assets for any organization.
That's a great takeaway. We've covered a lot in this deep dive. The legal side of things, the need for updates, even the surprising role of humor.
Yeah, it's been a really interesting discussion. I hope our listeners have learned something valuable about this, often overlooked world of quality documents.
I know I have. It's definitely given me a new perspective. And maybe, just maybe, our listeners will see that file folder on their desk a little differently now. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. See you next time.